I've been asked by many people over the last 48 hours, including the media, politicians, both past and present, and ordinary members of the public, my thoughts on the Prime Minister's recent address to the nation. Let me categorically say that this was not an address to the nation, but a party political broadcast of the PNM. There is no doubt in my mind that the PNM is on an election footing. The Prime Minister, in my opinion, squandered a golden opportunity to inform the population of his government's plans to address some of the most pressing issues affecting the daily lives of ordinary citizens. Issues such as the unacceptably high murder rate, growing unemployment, especially amongst our youth, high food prices, affordable health care, an innovative housing solution for the 165,000 persons on the waiting list, the demultiplier effect of the Petrotrin closure, and the future of Heritage Petroleum, with oil prices now hovering in the mid-40s, the collapse in the ease of doing business, and the continuing closure of many small businesses. Instead, he launched into a litany of complaints of the bad lot that he inherited, and proceeded, as he usually does, to blame the previous government for his government's obvious failures. Let me first remind the Prime Minister that this is a job that he campaigned for, on the basis that he had all of the answers to our country's problems. Let me also remind him that every incoming government has its share of problems to deal with as was the case in 2010, when the People's Partnership government was faced with the CL financial debacle, outstanding payments to contractors, arrears in VAT, and over 80 outstanding wage negotiations. The then government got on with the job that they were elected to do without much fuss or fanfare. Secondly, a number of statements made by the Prime Minister are clearly not true, can easily be refuted, and casts a dark shadow on the Prime Minister's entire presentation. Firstly, he stated that revenues from the energy sector fell from 17 billion in 2015 to 1 billion in 2016. Well, a cursory look at the Review of the Economy 2018, a document actually produced by the Ministry of Finance, shows clearly that revenues earned from energy in 2016 was $8.3 billion, not $1 billion as he has suggested, 9.1 billion in 2017 and 12 billion in 2018. Secondly, he stated that there were significant losses due to the incentives given to the energy companies in 2014. This again is false propaganda. Listen to what Alison West, then senior partner at Pricewaterhouse, now junior minister in the Ministry of Finance, had to say in review of the 2012-2013 budget. I quote, "Our regime is not sufficiently competitive and requires the introduction of additional capital and investment allowances to encourage exploration." End of quote. The reality is that the incentives in the form of capital allowances, which already exist on our statute books, were allowed to be accelerated and written off in the year of expenditure. However, because of the depressed world energy prices, the energy companies did not make a taxable profit, the allowances could not be written off, and there was little or no impact on government revenue. This is what Norman Christie, BPTT's president, had to say to the Business Express on March the 14th, 2018 on this matter. The truth is, without the incentives that were provided, the investments would not have been made. That being said, at the time of the investment, there was an expectation that prices were going to be a lot higher than they ended up being. So in a way, the country benefited because the allowances could not be used by the companies. There are several other areas that warrant concern, including the Prime Minister's assertion that our debt to GDP ratio is declining, where the most recent report from the IDB suggests that it is on an increase and has reached record levels of 60.8%, which of course does not include the Petrotrin debt, arrears on VAT, and the overdraft at the central bank. The blasé manner in which the cabinet procured Galleon's Passage has now moved from a fast ferry to a reasonably fast ferry, and is now the boat of choice for the yet-to-be-built Toco to Tobago ferry service. The People's Partnership government spent a grand total of $290 billion over its 5-year term in office, but is able to look back with some degree of pride to a number of infrastructural successes, such as sporting complexes, schools, hospitals, health centers, roads, bridges, agricultural access roads, fish landing sites, a new university campus, and police and fire stations, to name but a few. That government was also able to increase both the number and quantum of social welfare grants, including funeral grants, housing grants, old age pension, public assistance, and the much maligned food cards. In the area of the economy, foreign exchange reserves were at historical highs of $11.5 billion. The Heritage and Stabilization Fund peaked at over $6 billion US. Unemployment was well below 5%. 50,000 new jobs were created, and our country's debt to GDP stood at 45%. Ladies and gentlemen, these facts are irrefutable. Having spent a similar amount, approximately $160 billion in its first 3 years in government, as did the People's Partnership, can the Prime Minister point to similar success in his government? I think we all know the answer to that. It is clear that the government's policies of increased taxation, additional borrowings, raiding of the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, and selling of state assets have failed miserably. The government's continued excuses have worn thin with a besieged and long-suffering population. As I've said before, ladies and gentlemen, our challenges are not insurmountable. And over the next few weeks, I intend to outline a series of measures which, when implemented, will reverse the decline in the quality of life that we are now enduring and put our country back on the path of prosperity and growth. As a nation, we deserved just that.
Trinidad is my land, and of it I am proud and glad. But I can't understand why some people just talk it bad. But I know all of them we running them out. Don't know where they're talking about. They will pay